Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Shook Sports Takes podcast. Today is the first episode of the Western Conference in my series of giving my opinions on every NBA team early this season. If you haven't been following along, we've done all of the divisions in the Eastern Conference. This will be the first one of the West. This is the Pacific Division. So it'll be the Lakers, the Warriors, the Suns, the Sacramento Kings, and the Los Angeles Clippers, for those of you who aren't great with divisions. Yeah, so I've done this whole series for every team so far. I'm excited to get into it with the West. I think the West is a lot more competitive than the East, which is something I've stated numerous times, especially with how many injuries of superstars are in the East. But the West is very different. There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of fun, exciting things to talk about when we get to the Western Conference. So without further ado, we're going to kick things off with the Los Angeles Lakers. At the time of recording, the Los Angeles Lakers sit at 9-4, when that puts them at fourth in the Western Conference, and they are yet to have LeBron James. That's a pretty good start. LeBron should be making his season debut tonight, actually, in their game. I don't remember who they're playing, but he should be playing tonight. I'm sure it's limited minutes, but the reason the Lakers have been so hot to start the season without LeBron James is because Luka Doncic gets literally whatever he wants. Every look. I mean, he's getting to the foul line. He's continuing to knock down the three. His mid-range game is looking just as violent as it has in the past few years. It doesn't matter who they put in. They put a bigger guy, he blows right by him. They put a smaller guy, he's posting up going to work. Like, Luka Doncic just gets the bucket in any fashion that he pleases. And he's torching other defense. It's ridiculous. He's averaging 33, 9, and 9. So he's not just creating for himself. He's doing things for his teammates as well. I think the whole Luka's out of shape lit a fire under him because he looks completely different this season. He's just been absolutely rolling to start. And he's not alone in doing that. Austin Reeves is just out there hooping. He's missed a couple of times. Luka's missed a couple of games. And in that time period, I think he missed four or five games. And in that period, Austin Reeves went for 51, 41, 26, 28 and 16. I mean, talk about carrying the load when your team needed you to step up. Austin Reeves has been great to start the season. So I guess it's only 3 games that Lucas missed, but in those 3 games, Austin Reeves was fantastic. Like I said, 51, 41, and then 28 and 16. He's just out there. I actually said early in the season that I could see a situation where Austin Reeves was fed up being the third guy, the third man on the team, and he could request a trade, and that the Lakers could move on from Austin Reeves some point this season around the deadline. It doesn't look like that Austin Reeves cares about that at all. It looks like Austin Reeves strictly cares about winning, and it looks like he's going to continue. Obviously, we haven't seen him play with LeBron on the court yet, but it looks like he's going to continue to see more shots than he did in the last 2 years. I mean, it's ridiculous. He's almost considered a 1C rather than option 2 or option 3. He is so improved. The way he gets to the bucket is really, really impressive. I mean, he kind of just blows by guys. He's playing really physical. He's knocking down his shots. Austin Reeves looks fantastic. And then you have DeAndre Ayton, who anyone who had watched any DeAndre Ayton since his time in Phoenix knew when the Lakers fans were celebrating getting a center that those celebrations were going to be pretty short-lived, because the idea of DeAndre Ayton is always better than actually having DeAndre Ayton. And now, he's had some pretty good games, to be fair. I think he had 25 the other night. He's had some decent performances, but he is just very inconsistent. And it's not even just the inconsistency, it's the fashion at which he can kind of impact how good your team plays on a night. Because if he is not playing well, which can happen quite often, the whole team's going to be off. You're not going to rebound very well. You're going to be in a lack of post offense. And the nights that he's really good, the Lakers will probably win. But the idea that he is going to be the big center that this team was missing is just not the case. He doesn't impact the game enough on the nights, on a consistent basis, on the nights that he's not playing well, and he can impact it the wrong way. So it kind of just is what it is with DeAndre Ayton, and Portland fans will know this, and Phoenix fans will know this, that it almost feels like DeAndre Ayton doesn't care enough about basketball sometimes, which is quite frustrating. And I'm not saying that he doesn't. I'm not, trying to slander the man, but it just, in his play, some nights it just doesn't look like he has it. Sometimes it doesn't look like he wants to be there, and it's a very strange thing to sit and watch when you're talking about a professional basketball player. But again, when he does play well, he's very impactful. He's a total lob threat. He crashes the boards well, but it just doesn't happen all the time, and it's kind of going to impact how far this Laker team can go. But then you have the bench, which is also still such an issue. They've dealt with a lot of injuries early on. I think Marcus Smart was playing well before. He missed some time. Braun hasn't played all season. Dalton Knecht has missed time. Jared Vanderbilt just got healthy. So they've dealt with some issues, but even outside of that, Jake LaRavia has been the only piece that I thought they added that's really looked good. Jake LaRavia has done a lot of good things. Obviously, he had that massive night where he went out and just killed. I'm not actually sure what the game was, but I think he went for 28 to 30 or something like that. He has had a couple of really nice performances, but you look at the bench and you feel a little bit underwhelmed. I've seen Bronny start games for them this season that shouldn't be happening. No offense to Bronny, he's just not ready yet. So, seeing the way that the bench has come in and it does really feel like this team right now, until we'll see what happens when LeBron gets back, but it feels like this team is only going to go as far as Luka and Austin Reeves can carry them. And the simple fact of the matter is Luka and Austin Reeves, and once LeBron gets healthy, could probably carry them to a championship if need be. So, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the Lakers are not contenders, because of course they are. I think they'll probably end up in that 4 or 5 seed. They won't be in any fear of the play-in, but, it is going to depend on, can Luka and Bron and Austin Reeves all stay healthy, and how much is it going to take for them to really carry the rest of this team to a championship? And I just don't know if I see it happening, but I'm not going to say it's impossible. We have what I would consider one of the most confusing teams in the NBA at the immediate moment, in the Golden State Warriors, who sit at 7-6, 8th in the Western Conference. And here's the thing. Steph Curry can still give you 40 on any given night. So they're always going to have a chance to win, especially when he's hot. He's playing really well right now. Steph's an issue, all times. And Jimmy Butler being on the floor means teams cannot just commit 2-3 guys to Steph Curry, because then you're getting fried by Jimmy Butler, right? But the rest of the team just simply confuses me. Now, I know about Draymond. Draymond is not going to do anything superb on the offensive end, but he is so good defensively, right? Jonathan Kuminga, a guy who so many have had such high hopes for, and it just hasn't clicked. He's now seeing minutes as the starter every night, and he's not been wildly efficient. He's good when he plays really well. He gets his head down, he drives the rim, he's such a freak athlete. But it just doesn't happen consistently. It seems like sometimes he kind of shrinks into a shell and just thinks that Steph and Jimmy have to do all of it for him, that he has to go to them constantly. I don't know. I don't know what the thing with Jonathan Kuminga is, but when he is hot, he is a real issue, and he's a really good, valuable piece of this team. But then some nights he just doesn't show up, and it's not really the same as like he's not motivated. It's almost like some nights he's just not even part of the game plan. It's so weird. And then you go to the bench, and they have guys like Trace Jackson Davis, who I think could be offering more to this team. Quentin Post, who is coming off a great game, but he is not really consistently adding this team. Buddy Hield and Brandon Pajemski. Buddy Hield on opening night had like 25 points, making 7 threes. He hasn't really done much since. Pajemski has his nights where he shoots really well, but if he's not shooting really well, it's almost solely defense with him. Gary Payton's second. He's another one that adds a lot of value on the defense side of the ball, but then unless he's hot, really shooting well, doesn't really do a whole lot on offense. So it is just... Moses Moody's another one. Moses Moody, again, if he's hot, great, he's going to shoot really well, but then if he is cold, he's going to probably only he's gonna take 6 shots and probably only makes two. So it's just so weird that it feels like Steph can take this team anywhere. It's kind of similar to the Lakers at the moment, where Steph and Jimmy and Draymond on the defense side of the ball can take this team to a championship. It's about consistently winning games to get to a position where you can do that. And that means other guys are going to have to step up. We have to see better out of Kuminga, who some have said it has all-star potential and has not even close to shown that yet, at least not consistently at a high enough level. Or a guy like Buddy Hield or Pajemski are going to have to start shooting better on a night-to-night basis. And they're going to need better post play out of Quentin Post and Trace Jackson Davis, who I don't think has really been given a fair chance to make an impact on this team. A team that, probably 12 months ago was impacting this team every night. He was starting at center for them. I just don't know. It's a very strange thing with this team. It kind of just depends. If Steph Curry can get hot right around playoff time, and maybe they have to go through the play-in, but if he can get hot right around that time, I back this team to beat almost probably half the West outside of the Thunder, outside of the Nuggets, maybe the Rockets as well. But if Steph, like last year, if Steph finds himself hurt, this team's not winning a playoff series. No shot. No way. Or if Jimmy finds himself hurt, and then they can just go back to committing 3 guys to guarding Steph like they did early last season before the Butler trade was made. I just don't have enough. You're not going to convince me that this Warrior team is championship contenders when there's no consistency outside of Steph and Jimmy. That's a simple fact of the matter. They're great on defense. They're very, very good on defense. And a lot of that is Draymond Green. They have some great perimeter defenders, but those guys cannot produce at the high enough level on a night-to-night basis for this offense, and I think it's going to hold this Golden State team back. But if it's just 2 of them, man, if they can get rolling and really start to come together, there might be a problem coming out of Golden State. Takes us to the Sacramento Kings, and I have 3 words for you, Sacramento. Blow it up. It's not working. Blow the whole thing up. Now, Sabonis is going to miss like 4 weeks with a slight tear and some ligament in his leg. Zach LaVine is playing great. Doesn't matter. You sit at 3-10 at the time that I set and wrote down my notes for this episode. They're 15th in the Western Conference. This isn't working. And what's funny is a lot of people sit and say, well, no, duh, it's not working. You took the 2 superstars that couldn't get it done in Chicago and you brought them here. What did you expect to happen? You also traded De'Aaron Fox. And I don't disagree. I don't know what the thought process behind bringing in Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, especially when they're 2 of the most untradeable players in the league because of how much money they were making in Chicago. It's still the same contracts that they're making. Sabonis as well, making a ridiculous amount in Sacramento. Those 3 guys probably need to go so you can start to fully rebuild. And yet you can't trade it. You can't trade any of them because no one wants to take them. They're not franchise changing pieces. They could be to the right team, but no team is willing to pay that amount in order to bring them in when they don't guarantee that you'll swing from a playoff team to a serious contender. The only thing I could think of is maybe the Lakers make a move for Sabonis. But now with Ayton, I think they'll just ride with him. I know I just harped on him a lot, but it's not worth taking on Sabonis' contract and moving Ayton to the bench when you have all these other factors to consider, right? And then the other 2, again, they're great players. I really like DeMar DeRozan. I love Zach LaVine. It doesn't matter because those contracts are huge. And any franchise that is, they're both older. I think DeMar DeRozan's 35, 36, and Zach LaVine's 32. It's not warranting enough. There's not a long enough, if you bring one of them in, there's not a long enough championship window with those guys being main pieces to consider the fact that you're also paying them a ridiculous amount of money. It just wouldn't help a lot of teams that are really making fourth progress, and certain teams are going to sit there and say, we could trade for Zach LaVine, give up some picks or a young piece, but I'd rather just keep our picks and push our championship window back 1 or 2 years and then have a longer window to win a championship, right? Which makes sense. I don't blame any GM thinking that way. But as for specifically Um, Zach LaVine's hooping. He's shooting much better than he was when he first got to Sacramento. That was a big struggle. He did not hit the ground running when he got there, but now he's shooting well. I think he's shooting a lot closer to 40% from three. DeMar DeRozan is shooting well from three, which is really surprising. But again, that midi is probably one of the best in the NBA. Sabonis has been a little bit underwhelming, um, but again, he could be, if for the right team to be traded to, he could be a great piece. He's a good passer for a big man, a great passer for a big man. He is going to be able to find points. He can score 20. He probably averaged 18 last year. He's averaging a little bit closer to 15 this year. He struggled a little bit, but and then we know how great of a rebounder he is. So any team that wanted to bring him in that they thought he would make them championship contenders, they probably aren't wrong considering um, what he can do. But it just isn't worth it, and that's all I can say. So that's what the situation they find themselves in, is that they need to get these guys out of the team and just completely reset. But it's not gonna happen because of the contracts they find themselves in. But moving on from that portion of it, I think Russell Westbrook getting back into a starting lineup has been fantastic. He looks awesome. He's already got 3 triple doubles on the season. And in the games he started, he looks really good. Again, we know how aggressive Russell Westbrook's going to be getting downhill. He's a problem when he is full head of steam. And he's still a valuable piece to an offense. I couldn't believe that he almost didn't find himself on an NBA roster this season. I think it was a no-brainer to put him in the starting lineup over Dennis Schroeder, who has very much struggled. They also haven't had Keegan Murray all season, which is... I'm not a huge fan of Keegan Murray. I think he struggled a lot last year, but the year before he was showing a lot of potential. So Keegan Murray's another piece. He's not going to come in and change this team from um, not like from bottom of the barrel to a play-in or playoff team, I don't think. But the aspect of Keegan Murray's shooting is great, and he can be pretty effective as a stretch four. And then you have guys like Keon Ellis, and I already mentioned Dennis Schroeder, who are just not really doing very well. They're struggling a lot. Dennis Schroeder's very much struggled. Keon Ellis was one of the guys that people thought when Mike Brown was fired from Sacramento, Keon Ellis would explode into this superstar. And all I've learned since Mike Brown was fired from Sacramento is that Mike Brown was wrongfully fired from Sacramento. Because, he wasn't giving minutes to Keon Ellis, but Keon Ellis, with the minutes, hasn't really done a whole lot. And this Sacramento team just isn't built. They went to the playoffs in, 22, 23 maybe, and people thought that the Sacramento team was on the rise. There was a lot of hype, specifically around not only the team itself, but the fan base pushing. They had the whole Light the Beam thing in it. And it really felt like a different time in Sacramento than what we were accustomed to over the last few years. And now they're right back to where they were, just kind of in this bubble of irrelevancy. I do want to give a shout out. Malik Monk is shooting 46% from three. He's doing his job. Malik Monk was great in the stretch that right after De'Aaron Fox was traded last season. There was a period of time before LaVine got healthy or maybe it was before LaVine got there, that Malik Monk was carrying this offense. He can be an absolute sniper from behind the arc, so credit to him. He is fantastic. And he's a guy that's been around the league for quite a while, and he's just now starting to play some of his best ball. Whether it's through the starting lineup or off the bench, he does a great job. But yeah, I mean, Sacramento is it's so annoying because they have the talent, and you look at the roster and you think they should certainly be playing like a play-in team. But in a difficult West, they're going to be bottom feeders, and there's nothing really that they can do about it because they can't offload the guys they need to do a full rebuild. So if you're a Sacramento fan, I apologize for the struggle that you're going to have to watch this season. But maybe they can figure something out and string a couple games together. But really, at very best, they're at the bottom. Their first round exits in the play-in. That's simple as I see it. As for the Los Angeles Clippers, this has probably been the most disappointing team in the NBA to start the season. And some of you would have expected it. When they brought in a bunch of older guys, a bunch of veterans, they brought in Brook Lopez and Bradley Beal, John Collins, and Chris Paul, I was actually pretty high on it. I was thinking of it like, Kawhi Leonard's not going to play a lot of games this season. However, this is a team that just took the Nuggets to 7 games, who took the NBA championship to 7 games, right? So this team obviously wasn't far off. And I looked at it saying, when Kawhi's healthy, this team is an issue. However, when he doesn't play, when he's hurt, they need to fill the gap of his points. And they went about it through the Moneyball idea, right? That you can't bring in one guy to fill that gap, but you can bring in a bunch of different guys to add all those points together. And the simple fact of the matter is none of those guys are playing well. Bradley Beal's already out for the season with a hip injury. He's done. At least I think he's going to miss the rest of the year, but he's pretty much done. Brook Lopez is averaging 6 points. Chris Paul is shooting 27% from the floor and from 3, averaging 2.5 points a game. I mean, it's insane. John Collins is averaging 11, which has been fine. He's only shooting 35% from 3. John Collins has been the best of the acquisitions, and this team sits at 4 and 8 at the time that I did the research. I think they've lost their last 3 since that. It's been a total nightmare. Now, James Harden's still playing great. James Harden's averaging 25 and 9, shooting pretty well. When Kawhi Leonard's not playing, I think he's averaging 30. But it doesn't matter because Kawhi's not playing and the rest of the guys can't step up. I think Chris Dunn is fantastic on the defensive side of the ball. I think Derrick Jones Jr. has been good on defense, but he's struggled a lot. He's only averaging 11 points. A guy who I felt like really started to hit his stride late last year because he's such a threat in transition. His athleticism is off the charts. I mean, the guy was really starting to put it together, and his 3-ball was starting to fall, especially from the corners. So I thought there was something there that we could see out of Derrick Jones Jr., and now he's hurt, but it just hadn't really started clicking, and his role decreased with the way John Collins came in. And Zubac is, taking a step back from last year, but that was expected. He's still averaging a double-double, but I wasn't sitting here expecting Ivan Zubac to go for 20 points a game again this season. And really, I think a lot of the issues, the fact they no longer have Norman Powell. Norman Powell's been awesome in Miami, and he was great for the Clippers last season, but they didn't retain him. And again, they filled that gap with a bunch of guys who are not scoring the ball well in the slightest. Not even that. Chris Paul's playing 13 minutes a game. He's just not really being very effective. Boban Bogdanovic is playing 25 minutes a game, shooting 33% from 3. It just isn't good enough from the guys that they've relied on to come off the bench and provide something, some form of spark. And they've gotten very little from it, and this team just looks like such a nightmare. They don't really mesh. They rely a lot on Kawhi to score the points. Like I said, the idea is that when he's playing, he's gotta have a big night, and if that doesn't happen, they lose. And when that does happen, he and Harden can probably take a win off of a couple of good teams. But the issue is that you're relying on a guy who plays maybe 40 games a year, if that. So it's been really, really tough for this team, and I don't think a lot of people saw this coming considering the success they had last season. But it's just so weird, man, because they're so old, and it was like throwing all of their eggs in the season, this season being the year, or next season being the year, because you don't have a lot of time with the guys on this roster. And you looked at the guys they brought in, and it's like, those aren't championship winning pieces. Those guys aren't going to change your franchise for this season. They weren't the additions you needed. And so now, they're going to have to, in 2 years, they're going to lose everything, because half the guys on the roster are going to retire. And they don't even own their own first-round pick this season, by the way. That pick belongs to the Oklahoma City Thunder. What are we doing? Like, come on, man. You're just, like, the current, I think they have the first overall draft pick right now. Obviously, it's a lottery system, so that's not accurate, but they'd have the best odds at it at the immediate moment. It's too early in the season to actually worry about that, but the idea of the Oklahoma City Thunder potentially winning back-to-back rings this season, and then walking away with the first overall draft pick is disgusting. But yeah, I mean, I just don't know what to do with this Clipper team. It's a total nightmare. They don't own their first round pick. The hopes for the future aren't great, and they've eliminated all hope of this season by bringing in a bunch of guys who aren't going to score the ball or do anything that useful, really. Some of them just aren't even doing anything. So it's I mean, in a stacked West, they're not going to the playoffs. They might crack the play-in if they can start to pick it up if Kawhi gets healthy and can steal them a few games. But I have no hope for this Clipper team, a Clipper team that I felt really good about going into the season. We have, and the last team in the Pacific Division is the Phoenix Suns, who have been really interesting, really surprised. They've been great, considering the fact that it's such a tough Western Conference, and this roster is kind of a mess when you looked at it in the preseason. They haven't had Jalen Green all year, and they've been great. They sit 8-5, seventh in the West. When I was sitting here filling out the notes for this episode, I mean, really surprising. I did not expect them to have picked off some of the wins I mean, they've beaten good teams. They took a W off the Spurs, which was great. They're giving teams a lot of issues. Now, don't get me wrong. A large percent of that is how good Devin Booker is. 28 points per game, 7 assists on average. He's Devin Booker. We know that Devin Booker does what Devin Booker does. His mid-range, his three-ball, just so pure. It's so pure. He's so much fun to watch. I love Devin Booker. And when you have Devin Booker, you're gonna be able to score points consistently. But even outside of that, Dylan Brooks, before he got hurt, was taking on a bigger role, scoring the ball, and he's done a pretty good job. Again, he's still playing great defense. This is something that, if you watch the series between the Rockets and the Warriors last season in the first round of the playoffs, won't really surprise you all that much, because when the Rockets needed somebody to step up and score outside of Fred VanVleet, they went to Dylan Brooks quite often. He had a fair few really good performances where he was making difficult shots consistently against that Warrior defense. Dylan Brooks had a great series. And so when he was part of the Kevin Durant trade, I wasn't surprised because you're getting Kevin Durant out of it. But he's been really good for this Phoenix Suns team, and he does it on both sides of the ball. It's been a really good piece to have. I think he just got back from being injured, so that's a good sign for Phoenix as well. But they've had a lot of guys step up. Something I would love to see is you spent your first round pick on Malach, I think is how you pronounce his name. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. He was playing center for Duke. That guy's a problem. And yet the minutes have not existed at all. He's barely played. And I don't mean he's getting a few minutes a game. He's sitting out most games. In options for Nick Richards, who I like Nick Richards. I thought he did a pretty good job coming into last season when they brought him in. But Nick Richards isn't offering enough for me to keep me from tapping into the potential of that young man, because that guy is a problem. I think he really brings an intensity and just a hunger to this Phoenix Suns team that could be really useful off the bench. And I cannot believe that that's where the minutes are going, that they're going to Richards and not Malach. I can't believe it. I think he does a lot of good things, and yet they're not trusting him. I don't know what the game plan is when you get him involved, but I think it needs to be sooner before than it is later, because I think he could really impose himself into this team as a rookie. Yeah, you only have 2 games out of Jalen Green, and I say 2 games because he played 8 minutes in the other one before he got hurt again. But in the one full game he played, he went for 29. Shot pretty well. Jalen Green is such an intriguing player because the thing with him is that he has nights where he just looks unstoppable, and you sit and you watch and go, that guy's going to be one of the best in the NBA. And I can really understand people who say that. I understand people who say that they have a lot of hope for Jalen Green. But we're 4 years into his career now, and he doesn't do it consistently. He'll go on runs where he is fantastic. And he has all the attributes on offense. He totally can score at any level. Whether it's getting to the bucket, he has got a pretty clean mid-range, and his 3-ball when it's falling is, a very big problem. But Jalen Green might be one of the most inconsistent superstars I've ever watched play the game of basketball. Because there are some nights he goes out there and you think, what is he doing? And he was terrible against the Warriors in the postseason. He did not shoot well that entire series. The series that went 6 games. I just don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if he really did start to find his footing in Phoenix, taking more shots. No, I wouldn't. And if he found a rhythm once he got healthy and was consistently scoring really well throughout this entire season, that would not surprise me. But it also wouldn't surprise me if it's a total train wreck and he comes back and he continues to have nights where he'll go for 35 and then come back and he'll go for 12 shooting. And the issue is that Jalen Green, even when he's cold, is always going to shoot the ball. I don't blame him. He's a scorer. It's what he's done his whole life. But he will shoot you out. He will shoot you out of games. I've seen him multiple times. I watched a lot of Houston Rockets basketball last season. He almost blew that game. There was that really crazy game between Houston and Cleveland where Darius Garland missed 2 of 3 free throws and the Rockets stole it at the end. Jalen Green almost shot them out of that game. He wasn't playing well. There was a couple of times, again, against the Warriors, the entire series, he did not shoot well. And so when Jalen Green is cold, it's a nightmare. But when he is hot, and they can fluctuate on a night-to-night basis, he'll go from 35 points, the next night he'll drop 5. It's something insane. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. But I do really like him. Because when he is rolling and when he's in a rhythm, Jalen Green is almost unstoppable. I don't know how well he pairs with Devin Booker. But Booker seems to be taking on more of this true point guard playmaking role. I mean, he's averaging, I think, a career high in assists so far. That could be wrong, but 7 assists is plenty from a guy who you expect to be a straight scorer. So it's gonna be interesting. That's it for sure. Mark Williams, 11 and 8 on a nightly basis. I really like what I'm seeing from him, playing his role really well, offering a lot to this team that doesn't really have anything to lose this year. You know, they have picks now. They would like to win to keep Devin Booker happy, but it's not the end of the world, right? Like, they are trying to find what direction they go now that the Kevin Durant experiment, I'll call it, did not work. And what's funny to me is, just going back to Jalen Green, what's funny to me is they tried this whole thing of 3 primary ball handlers with Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and and Kevin Durant. And now they realized that didn't work, so they traded 2 of them, and they have 2 primary ball handlers on the same. Like, I just don't see how it's gonna work between them. It just hit me that it's the same thing. It's the same idea that both these guys need the ball in their hands to provide for their team, and there's only 1 ball. Now 2 is obviously better than 3. 3 was never gonna work, and Jalen Green is a pretty solid defender. A lot of that does come from his athleticism. But I just don't know if it'll work. Anyway, at the end of the day, this Phoenix team, I still think they probably missed the play-in. Maybe they ride this wave. They look great right now. Maybe they scrape into the bottom of it. I don't think they'll make the postseason, but you never know. It's kind of about getting hot at the right time. It's all about making the play-in, and then from there, you just gotta win your games on a nightly basis. But the West is too strong. If they were in the East, this team makes noise in the playoff scene, I think. But I just don't buy it in the West. It's too competitive, and we'll see where it goes from there. But this Suns team is not as bad as I thought they were going to be at the end of the day. But that is the Pacific Division done. Please let me know in the comments what you think. Where am I right? Where am I wrong? I'd love to hear some feedback. But that is it for this episode of the Shook Sports Take podcast. Thank you all for listening.